In the previous tutorial, I mentioned that you could import PowerPoint slides with any images that you've already created in Photoshop or Illustrator or in PowerPoint. So we've seen the text tool that you can use within nearpod, and it's quite limited. So in order to bring in slides into nearpod from PowerPoint, you need to work directly from PowerPoint. So I've just got one here that has 3 slides already in place, and they've been made up with lots of different images and lots of different text. So it'd be very hard to recreate this using those very kind of naive tools in nearpod. So what I'm going to do is export. So File and Export your slides. We want to make sure they go into the right folder, and we want to export them as JPEGs. Now I can just do the current slide. In this case, I want all 3 slides to come into my nearpod presentation. So I'm going to do every slide and hit export. And it tells me each slide has been saved as a separate file in this folder. So I go OK. I can now come out of PowerPoint and bring in my file. So I can just hit my upload button, and in here I can hit my uploader and on the desktop find the folder that I exported those slides to. So it's just here, and there we go. And you can see it takes a moment to process, but once they come in, they should drop in the right order at the end of my presentation. Once they're in, you can split them up so you can move them around. Generally, I tend to work between PowerPoint and nearpod so that I have both open at the same time. And there we go, those are my 3 slides, and I actually think I want to maybe move that one, oops-a-daisy, that one goes first. There we go. Or I might even put one of these over here and break up the PowerPoint completely. So you can see there's a world of difference between the very, very simple text tool in nearpod and bringing in something from PowerPoint. Again, just as easily it could be something from Photoshop, it could be something from Illustrator or InDesign. But because there's a lot of content, it does take a while to process, so you can see that it's still processing. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to go back into Add Slide, and I want to just add in Field Trip. Now I find Field Trip quite useful. I'm going to type in Clifton Suspension Bridge, and I should get a couple of options. So if I hit done, that comes in as a 360 piece of footage, and there is a pipeline. I'm not going to get into it in this tutorial, but there is a pipeline for actually generating your own 360 footage and uploading it where we can use it in nearpod. So to preview what we've got so far, again, if I hit the preview button, that takes me into the student preview. I see what a student sees. And this should be my 360. It's just taking a minute. There we go. So in here, I can now drag this round. So you could see, for example, as a way of maybe showing a student what the inside of a gallery looks like, or in a lecture room discussing student studio layout, or even demonstrating to new students what the fabrication centre looks like inside, or the dark rooms, or something along those lines. It can be quite useful. So I'm going to come out of this now. I'm happy that this is my session, and I want to save and exit. And because it's the first time that I've saved this, I need to give it some lesson details. So I'm going to call this Agile Apps Staff Dev 2019, and I can put any further description that I may need in there. It's an American product, so it says grades, and I generally go with higher education. And under subject, I go with other, and save and exit. Once you're back out into the main dashboard, which is just, there we go. To move to the next step, you just hover over your lesson. And when we hover over the lesson here, you'll see I've got live lesson and student paste as my options. But I also have 3 little domino dots up here on the right. Now if I click those, it gives me some other options in terms of this particular lesson. One of them is add to, so I can add it to the school library. Now what that means is that we have a folder with shared lessons. So if you had done something collaboratively between 2 program teams or two groups of staff, and you wanted both groups to have access, you can have it shared to the library, and then other groups can access it from the library. And this is something we want to develop as much as possible, because we want to be trying to share good practice and good resources. The 2 options here, live lesson or student paste, it's quite simple when you get your head around it, but getting your head around it is quite tricky. When you launch a live lesson, it will launch a pin. So students coming in and sitting down will simply log into nearpod and add that pin. Now the overview, which is on this page with these tutorials, gives you a sense of how that looks and how that works. The student paste, again, can give you a pin, but it can also be embedded, or you can send it out as a link. And a student paste version is really good for flipped classroom activities. So you want students to look at 2 or 3 resources. You maybe want to put some website content in there, and with a little quiz after, and say please have read through. It could be as simple as you could add your module handbook and say please make sure you've read your module handbook and answer the following 3 questions. So it's quite versatile and quite useful. When we look in the top right hand corner, there's a create button. Now this is to create folders, and this is how we're going to manage content where we've shared one particular seat amongst 4 or 5 staff members. So let's just say I'm sharing. We would make a Mary folder and hit create. And that folder then is for my own lessons, but I can also move shared lessons into that folder. So if I want to move this, I just go add to folder, and I get a list of all my folders. And there's Mary, and I add lessons. So that's now added into my folder. And I can go back into the main lessons, and I could actually delete it from here if I wanted to. So if I wanted to keep things just tucked away in my own folders. Having said that, it's quite useful to keep a few lessons so that a new staff member coming in can see how other people are setting up and using Nearpod.